The Lady of the Dunes, identified as Ruth Marie Terry. The Lady of the Dunes is, in its own way, maybe the American version of Somerton Man. It was in July of 1974 that a 12-year-old girl was on the beach at Race Point Dunes in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Just yards from the road where she was chasing her dog who had run off, she saw the remains on a blanket of what she thought was a deer. It was soon discovered, however, that it wasn't a deer. It was a woman found lying on a blanket. The police originally believed she had been sleeping and someone took her life. There was no sign of a struggle, and she was laying to one side of the blanket as if perhaps someone shared the blanket next to her. Others surmised that she may have known the person who took her life, as there was no signs of a struggle. They were able to tell that she had her hair in a ponytail, a blue hairband, Wrangler jeans, and her toenails were painted pink. But it was problematic in the state her remains were in when she was found. 2 sets of footprints led to her remains, and tire tracks were found about 50 yards away. It appears whatever had happened 2 weeks before. It turns out it was so much worse than it appeared. She had been brutally strangled. One side of her head had been crushed. It appears that someone may have used a military-style entrenching tool. It was the head injury that would end up being determined to be the cause of death. Whoever left there had removed her hands, leading the police to believe that she may have had fingerprints somewhere that would have linked to her identity. They believed she was about 5'8" and 145 pounds, and they were able to tell she'd had a lot of expensive dental work done that was about $10,000. They would state the style of dental care was New York style. Some of her teeth had been removed post-mortem. She was likely 20 to 49, and there was also a sign of SA that took place post-mortem, likely caused by a foreign object. The case investigators helped raise money for her burial casket, and then, over the years, the case would go cold, but not for lack of trying. Depictions of her were created in 1979. Another was done in 2006. The police searched missing person cases in hopes of finding one that would match, but it never happened. Many believed that Whitey Bulger was involved, as he'd been seen with a woman resembling the Lady of the Dunes. The case took on a mysterious air. For anyone who doesn't know, Whitey Bulger was 45 at the time, and he was a really bad guy. He was an Irish mob boss located in Boston. For many years, he would rank under the top 10 of the FBI's most wanted. The link between them was never proved, however, and it's unlikely but not impossible that he was involved. A man named Hayden Clark, who would be convicted of 2 other murders, confessed to the Lady of the Dunes, but that is also thought to be a false lead. Authorities would eventually say that this statement was believed to be untrue. In 2015, Joe Hill, who is the son of author Stephen King, introduced the theory that the Lady of the Dunes may have been an extra on the 1975 film Jaws, which was filmed in the Massachusetts area during the summer of 1974. And in fact, a lot of people from that area were extras in the movie. This theory was spawned when Hill attended a 40th anniversary screening of Steven Spielberg's movie Jaws. This movie was filmed on Martha's Vineyard in the summer of 1974. The vineyard is an island off the south of Cape Cod, and the movie was filmed nearby. He spotted in the movie a woman who he thought looked exactly like the 2010 composite recreation of the Lady of the Dunes. And this theory began to take on life. The authorities have called it wild speculation, but comments online were rampant. Hill commented that it was commonly known that a lot of people were around Cape Cod at that time that had appeared in the movie. Personally, at first, I decided it didn't appear like a close match, but then looking at it again, I'm not so sure. With it blown up, it does look a lot like her, especially the depiction of her with short hair. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was it her? Was she in the movie? It would take Authren Labs to make her identification on October 31st, 2022. Her name was Ruth Marie Terry, but she had used multiple aliases over time, and that may have had something to do with the trouble in identifying her. Terry was also known as Terry Marie Vizina, Terry M. Vizina, Terry Shannon, and we know that she was 37 when she was killed in 1974. She had married a man named Guy Rockwell Moldavan in 1974, and he was a known criminal who had the tendency to use multiple aliases himself. Ruth was 37 when her life was taken. It's unclear if she'd ever been arrested, but he had. In fact, by the time he married Ruth, he was already under suspicion for taking the life of his second wife and stepdaughter in 1960. He had been named as one of the prime suspects in Ruth's case. I decided it might be important to run down what we know about Moldaven, because the police are looking for people to call in with information that might concretely end up solving this case. We know that Moldaven was an antiques dealer who used the names Raoul Guy Rockwell and Guy Moldaven. He was born in 1923, and he attended school in Switzerland, New York, and Connecticut. He was married to his first wife for 10 years, and then he later married a woman named Manzi Ryan, who disappeared on April Fool's Day 1960, along with her 18-year-old daughter, and they were never seen again. The same goes for that case. If anyone has any information on that case, please call the number that will show up at the end of this video on the screen. Adding insult to injury, he divorced wife number 2 for abandoning him. The police went through his house and they did find human tissue and some body parts, they said, in a newly sealed septic tank. Then somehow Moldaven disappeared, along with a check that he was given from his wife's stepmother for $10,000. The money in today's currency would be worth $99,000. It was meant to buy some antiquities for quick resale in Canada, but instead he pocketed the money and ran. We know that the Erie Pacific Times in 1961 printed a story stating he was suspected in the deaths of the second wife and daughter. And according to that story, he'd fled to Seattle, and he was arrested by the FBI in Brooklyn, New York in December of 1960. He was charged with unlawful flight to avoid giving testimony relating to the mutilation of human remains. It also stated that he was facing larceny charges for cheating wife number 3's family out of the $10,000. He was convicted, and he was sentenced to no more than 15 years. He was required to repay the money. Doesn't appear he was ever charged with the death of wife number 2, and I don't know how much time he served. What feels almost unforgivable about this case is that most of it happened so long ago that the odds of solving it are minimal, and the odds anyone is even still alive. It's just profoundly unfair that somebody loses their life and the person who does it goes free, and there's no punishment. Moldaven died in 2002 in California, and according to his obituary, he had married for the 5th time. Moldaven had actually been profiled in 1985 on a radio show in Pacific Grove. He was respected and he had a lot of friends. But the weird thing is, in that radio show, he mentioned the topic of erosion of culture. And he would make the statement that he believed killing had become a habit, which is ironic given all the suspicions that now lay around him. He moved on to the West Coast and managed to move on like his past didn't even matter. All of the suspicions were left behind. One of his newer friends came forward to say he was shocked that any of this was possible. He thought Moldaven was a stand-up guy. While his former wife was a Jane Doe in a Massachusetts cemetery plot, Moldaven continued to forge new relationships and a new life on the West Coast. He married Phyllis Roper, who was listed as his widow in a 2002 obituary. Phyllis herself died last year. It's believed that Terry lived in Massachusetts, Tennessee, and California, and possibly Michigan. It might be hard after all these years to trace her, but if at all possible, please call the number on the screen. Ruth Marie Terry went unidentified for 48 years. That's it for today. Thank you so much to everybody commenting. Even with just an emoji, it really has made a big difference. The current goal for the channel is 20,000 subscribers, but we aren't even halfway there as I record this. So if you enjoy the content here and you're not sure, take a peek to see if you're subscribed. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Thanks everybody. Take care of yourselves and each other.